Hey everyone, welcome back to Life of Us, and in today's segment we are presenting yet another character custom build for the Dungeons and Dragons custom board games, and in this case it is a somewhat familiar yet newly revamped character, and that is the Elven Mage. The Elven Mage we saw in a previous um, build that I've done for a previous campaign. That was the Ruin of Nimbar campaign, where I built the Elven Mage, a character with um, lots of elemental powers. And I've since revamped the character a little bit to be more in line with, I would say, the campaign that we're moving towards. You can still go ahead and play the old Elven Mage character if you still want to. It's all up on my blog, still under the Ruin of Nimbar tab. But if you're looking for something new and fresh and a slightly different take on the character, then this is what today's segment is all about. So the Elven Mage is, let's hop right in and have a look at what we're talking about. Okay, so this is the previous Elven Mage that I've done, which was the build for the Ruin of Nimbar campaign. This is Eladrian the Elven Mage. You've probably seen it if you've been on my blog or a regular visitor on my blog, or have seen or played through the campaign. Very much an Elementalist. The actual template for this build was based off uh, a template that I got off Board Game Geek, just slightly customized to fit the Elven Mage type character. It's since then gone through a bit of iteration. I'll show you in a minute, but as you can see on the far left hand side of the screen, you could summon elementals. That's changed now. So let's have a look at what's changed. What's changed is that we now have one character, but four elements, elemental builds for a single character. There's a fire build, a water build, an air and an earth build, and you get to play all of those different spheres or elemental spheres, as I'll show you in a minute. Um, and yes, you can play it all in one go with the character, but the order in which you play it is entirely up to you. There's time tokens that are used to differentiate when to switch between different spheres. But without further ado, let's dive right into it and have a look at the first sphere, which is the air sphere. Alright, so Ladrian, our Elven Mage, the last true scion of the mages of old and the firstborn of King Halathur. Eladrian chose a life of exile and secrecy, but has now returned to battle the evil that besets the land. A skilled mage, Eladrian harnesses the power of the elements to his advantage. So, if you've read the Ruin of Nimbar campaign, there's a little bit more to his backstory than what's in the little flavored text here. But the flavored text you'll see is prevalent across all the different spheres. This is the air sphere, and the statistics or the stats that you see at the top will vary depending on what sphere. So the air sphere's got a AC of 10. It's got an HP of 6, so very low AC and HP stats, but a speed of 12. So as expected, you'd expect the air sphere to be swift movement and faster movement. So that's the highest speed we've seen in the game so far. And no surge value. Surge value across all the spheres is 0. If you read the tiny little text here at the bottom, the fine print, it says there's no surge ability for Eladrian. If he's knocked out, the current active elemental sphere is removed from the game, along with all the elemental power cards, which I'll get to in a minute. Then choose another elemental sphere as your active sphere, and if all the elemental spheres are removed from the game, you then lose the adventure. So you get to cycle through all four of these different spheres. His base power is called Elementalist, of course. So you start the adventure with all four elemental spheres. Select one as your active sphere and place 4 time tokens under the active sphere. Remove a time token at the start of a hero phase. Once all 4 time tokens are removed, you may select a new elemental as your active sphere. There's a lot going on there, but basically what that means is that you get to cycle through all 4 of these different elemental spheres, and you have a total of 16 rounds before a new cycle then begins. So you'll play each one of these spheres for a total of 4 rounds and then switch to the next one. You don't have to, it's optional, so you have the option of remaining with the current sphere if you want to, but you have the ability to switch to a different sphere, and in certain cases that may be needed because all the different spheres give you different abilities and different powers, as we'll see in a minute. The power cards that are attached to Eladrian, they're the same across all spheres. You have Phoenix Blades, which is attached to the Fire Sphere. We have the Falcon's Talon, which is the Air Sphere's base power card. the mythical trident for water, and the giant warhammer for earth. So that's the air sphere. Let's have a look at the next one. The earth element, again, same flavor text, same stats, not same stats, same base abilities and powers and refinement, but the stats are different. In this case, we've got a very high AC, probably the highest we've seen on the starting card, an AC of 18. HP is again quite low, and the speed in this case is reduced to a dismal 4. So a very tanky sphere. So as you can imagine, it probably absorbed most of the damage in this case. But again, AC high, HP low, speed low, very low for the speed, and a surge value of 0. So it's all about timing and when you plan on using this particular sphere. So let's move on to the next sphere. And then we've got the fire sphere. So this fire sphere stats are an AC of 12, an HP of 6, and a speed of 6, and a surge value of 0. So in terms of overall stats, that's fairly standard. We're not seeing anything different. We've got a fairly average speed, average HP, and an average AC, but there are power cards like we'll see with the Phoenix Blades, which are attached to the fire sphere, that definitely boost this particular sphere's ability. Let's have a look at the last one then, and on to water. So with the water sphere, we've got an AC of 15, which is fairly high, HP of 6, and a speed of 5. Again, standard stats with a higher AC than we saw on the previous one, and that kind of concludes the base character power or base character cards. And now we'll have a look at the actual power cards. Okay, so first some clarification and misspelling before I get into it. It's the air sphere that we're looking at, but these two cards, one in the middle and the one on the left, says water talent. So my apologies for that. I will have that typo fixed and uploaded to my blog shortly, if I can just find my original PSD file, which for some other reason has gone rather awry and corrupted. Hopefully I'll be able to retrieve it. However, the air sphere is buffed up with these cards over here. Remember, the base abilities across all spheres allow you to use the weapon of choice from each sphere. So whether using Falcon's Talon or the Phoenix Blades for the fire or the Trident for water, you get all of those. So you get Falcon's Talon as well as the Warhammer from Earth and all the others. But the two, the one in the middle and the one on the far left, they are only applicable to the sphere that you're using. So Falcon's Talon says attack one monster up to 2 tiles away. It's a ranged attack. May not be used against any monsters on your tile. It's +7, dealing 1 damage, so it's fairly standard. We've seen similar card with, I think, Catibri in the Legend of Drizzt. Also has an ability which allows you to attack from far, but not against monsters on a tile. But then again, these abilities can be buffed up, as we see with the card on the far left over here. Keen Eyesight, it does a +3 to all ranged attacks, so that gives it a 10, doing 1 damage. The middle card, which is Fleet-Footed, used during your hero phase, you may spend movement points to move any 2 adjacent heroes on your tile. So again, fairly powerful little utility card, and we know with the air sphere, as we saw with the character card for the air element, is that it's sitting with a speed of 12, so you could use some of that movement to actually move your characters along. So again, fairly standard, fairly powerful, well, sort of standard, but buffed up with the card abilities which attach to that particular elemental sphere that you play. Alright, let's move along, and you'll notice that none of these power cards are flipped, so these are applicable across the whole sphere. Obviously, once your time tokens are turned and you have to switch to a different sphere, then you will lose the 2 of the power cards, not the weapon of choice, but 2 of the power cards then fall away, and you'll use the next set of power cards applicable to that sphere. Let's have a look at the next set of power cards there, which is the earth element. And with the earth element, you obviously get a giant warhammer, because who doesn't need a giant warhammer when plowing through the earth? And in this case, you've got a giant warhammer which is used for adjacent monster attacks, of course, but a fairly low attack, +5, and doing a damage of immobilized. I'm sure we can buff that up, and yes, we can. We buff it up with a card called Mighty, which gives you a +5 to all adjacent attacks. So that gives you a total of 10, doing a not doing damage in this case, but immobilizing the monster to ensure that the monster can't move. Remember, the Earth Power was more for a tank type ability with a very high AC, and that's where the middle card comes in, which is Tank. Use whenever an encounter card targets one or more heroes on your tile. Reduce the damage by one for any two adjacent heroes, and that is applicable throughout the use of this particular sphere, which is really cool. Um, Again, if it's slightly OP for you, you could add a flip option or make it give the make the card, the center card, sort of a 2-token utility. We're using HP tokens to denote how many times you can use that. I've made it for the campaign that I'm using exclusively across the use of the time token for that sphere. So once you get to the 4th time tokens, you flip to the new sphere, and then these two will fall away. However, um, that all depends on the type of game that you want to play. Uh, but Tank, very useful for evading encounters and reducing damage. Let's move on. Then we've got the Fire Sphere, and the Fire Sphere, bright orange. I was actually hoping for red, not quite the color I'm looking for, but we've got Phoenix Blades. So Phoenix Blades attack one adjacent monster, +8 to the attack, dealing 1 damage. And buffed up by Hot-Headed, which allows you to do 1 extra at-will attack against adjacent monsters during your hero phase. So like with Drizzed, he's got that dual wielding swords which he attacks with. In this case, you've got your Phoenix Blades doing very similar attack, or you could use it for a different adjacent attack with Hot-Headed. Raise Tempers, use when hit by an attack from a monster. The closest hero in your tower may move adjacent to the monster and attack with an at-will attack. So remember when I said the Fire Sphere didn't look like it had any real powerful stats up front? It's obviously buffed up by the power cards. In this case, Raise Tempers is a really powerful card in that if a monster or any fiendish beast was so foolish enough to attack you or hit you, it's going to piss off somebody in your party, and they're going to come right up and plow right into that monster and attack it as much as they can. So really cool set of power cards, I think, which gives sort of the feel for a fiery type play. You could even role play if you wanted to for this elemental sphere. That's something you could do. If you wanted to do a hot-headed, fiery Elven Mage, or a more earthy and grounded Elven Mage, or a light-headed, airy Elven Mage, and the last one, a underwater, bubbly Elven Mage, maybe. Let's have a look at these cards. So the water cards, water power cards for the water power sphere, for the water element sphere. We've got Mythical Trident. Mythical Trident says attack one monster within 1 tile. It's a ranged attack. On a hit, move the monster 1 tile in any direction. So like a water cannon, right? You're pushing that monster away. Flowing Fortitude buffs up that card with a +2 to all those attacks. Now it's a +2 to all attacks, not just to ranged or non-ranged attacks. So that's fairly useful. You could use that with your Phoenix Blades. You could use that with your Warhammer, or you could even use that with your Falcon's Dagger from the Air Sphere. Middle card is Healing Waters. All heroes on your tile gain +3 AC until the end of your next hero phase. So that's pretty powerful. While under your shield, you or any hero may forfeit an attack or move action to regain 1 HP, or forfeit the entire phase to regain 2 HP. So if you needed a sort of cleric type Elven Mage ability, this would probably be your go-to card, in that you could have your characters actually forfeit attacks or forfeit movement actions to regain the HP in that time, provided that they're all under your shield. So they've all got to be on your tile, and it's valid until the end of your next hero phase. So fairly useful, and as you saw, fairly different across all of the different elemental spheres that you can play. You want to play a fiery mage up front, or put it at the back and start off with a more grounded water approach, then move on to air and earth. The choice is entirely up to you. You do get the weapon cards across all 4 spheres, irrespective of what sphere is active at the time, but the power cards attached to those spheres are only active for the active sphere. So those, as I said, the middle and the far left cards from this presentation that I've just done. But that's it in a nutshell, guys. That's the update on the Elven Mage. thought it was a different take on the character. Let me know how it spins, let me know how it rolls, let me know how it plays. Thoughts and comments all appreciated on the blog. Yeah, and we'll chat soon. Thanks everyone. Bye.